This training is over filling out a manifest and how compliance is in your hands when it comes to manifests. So first we'll kind of just start out with this video that briefly goes over what a hazardous waste manifest is. And don't be fooled by when they say just hazardous waste manifest. Not all manifests are used for hazardous waste. It can be used for non-hazardous as well. But that's what they call the form in general is the hazardous waste manifest. So this video has really loud and obnoxious music, so I'm just going to read off the video itself. Yeah, my favorite song. And it plays it the whole time. So anyways, what are hazardous waste manifests? Commonly known as the cradle-to-grave system for tracking hazardous waste disposal or waste in general, hazardous waste manifests are forms designed to track hazardous waste from the time it leaves the generator's facility until it reaches its final destination. During the transportation and disposal process, all parties involved sign the document, in turn helping to ensure accountability throughout the entire process. The importance of hazardous waste manifests. Rather than a simple service sales receipt or like a BOL, having a hazardous waste manifest or just the waste manifest gives a much more detailed breakdown on the service and process. Not only does it include full information on the chain of custody of your waste, so basically who it started from, who it came from, who transported it, where it's going, all of that's on there. But it also includes the type and quantity of waste that's being disposed and instructions for how to handle it. So a lot more information on your waste manifest than there's going to be on just a simple BOL normally. Oh, and then besides the personal benefit of getting extra security out of waste manifests, there's also the legal aspect. Both the EPA and U.S. Department of Transportation requires hazardous waste manifests. So if you're hauling a hazardous load, you have to have a hazardous waste manifest. And it's important to note that it's the waste generator's responsibility to ensure manifests are completed. And while it says that, you have to keep in mind that really a lot of that responsibility does fall upon us, the waste broker, the waste transporter. Since we're taking on the responsibility of filling out this entire manifest a lot of the time on behalf of the generator, we need to make sure that that information is accurate because it can come back to bite us in the booty later. If we're being looked at by the state or by EPA or DOT, they're going to want to know who filled out that manifest. And if we did something wrong or missed information or screwed it up, we could still be held responsible for that. So may say it's the generator's responsibility, but really that's a joint responsibility for us. Waiting, move along. Come on. Okay. So this is how the manifest process works. Start with you signing. You meaning the, oh, what crap. Hold on, y'all. Sorry. Oh, nuts. Okay, so starts with the generator signing. So as the waste generator, we're going to have them sign initially on that first line, so the generator line. So before the waste is taken away, that we need to have that signature to indicate the transfer of custody of the waste. So we have to have that first signature, whether it's us signing on behalf, if we have a third party, or actually having the customer waste generator sign it, that needs to be signed. And then you have to have all the parties along the way sign the manifest as well. So that's where we come in. We're the transporter. We're handling the waste. We need to be signing that manifest all the way along. So that's going to show the trip that the waste basically has taken. You know, where did it come from? Where did it go? Cotton Eye Joe. But anyways, okay. So moving on. And then once the waste gets to the disposal facility, they are going to be the last ones to sign. So the receiving facility finishes this cradle-to-grave disposal process by signing that manifest at the very end, confirming that they have received the waste, and then eventually we will get, a copy digitally, that final copy showing that it's been signed if we weren't the ones transporting it. And also the customer will get a copy. The generator always needs that final copy, so they know that their waste went where it was supposed to go. There's Harriet. Okay, and I believe that's the end of that video. So there you go. It's just kind of a general introduction to what a hazardous waste manifest is. cradle to grave. Like I said, that's why we jump through all these hoops. This is a legal document. So it's showing from start to finish the path that this waste has taken, its journey to disposal. So really important we get all the signatures and all the information on there that's required. So we've all seen a uniform hazardous waste manifest. You'll see it says that up here, uniform hazardous waste manifest. Like I said before, it's not always used just for hazardous waste. This document right here will cover you no matter what. Let's say you've got non-haz waste, it's totally fine to put it on here. You've got used oil, totally fine to put it on here. This can be used for anything. So if you hear someone refer to it as uniform hazardous waste manifest, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're hauling haz waste. So before you haul any waste, before you drive off, you should make sure that these boxes that I've notated here are completely filled out. So box 1 is the generator ID number. Box 2 is going to indicate how many pages are part of this manifest. You may have an additional page, so if you wanted if there's 2 pages. You got box 3, emergency response phone number. So that's a 24/7 phone number, which most of the time we'll put our number there. Then you got box 5, which is generator name and mailing address, site address, if it's different from the mailing address, and then a phone number is required. It's required. So if it asks for it, you have to put something there. Box 6 is for transporter 1, their name and EPA ID. So like that would be our information if we're hauling it first. Box 7 would be if you had a second transporter. And then box 8 is where the waste is going. So the designated facility, name and site address, phone number is required. Also, if they have an EPA ID, there needs to be some type of ID there. Box 9, you'll mark if it's DOT hazardous. So if you're a haz driver and you're placarding, you're obviously going to be marking that, checking it. Box 9A is the DOT shipping name. And then box 10 is the number of waste containers and types. That's where you would put like 1 DM for 1 drum. Box 11, total quantity of waste would be 55. Like if you had a 55-gallon drum, you'd put 55 there, and then in box 12 you put gallon. Box 13 is waste codes. Box 14, that'd be where you could put your profile numbers, or if there's any other information that's just additional information that needs to be included. And then really important, like with all the signatures we talked about, box 15, the generator's name and their signature and the date. You need to have all 3 of those. And then box 17 is transporter name, transporter signature, transporter date. You have to have all of that information in there before you drive away from a site. You shouldn't drive away and not have signed as transporter 1 and then sign later. That's not okay, because if you get pulled over, DOT is looking at your paperwork. They're going to ask you, why have you not signed here? And then that's an issue for us compliance-wise. So just to reiterate, like I said, while most of the manifest boxes are the responsibility of the generator to complete accurately and fully, we take on some of that responsibility when we sign on behalf of the generator. Additionally, if information is not accurate, we could be held accountable in terms of DOT compliance obligations for the load's description. So that's really important why you should always look over your manifest before you haul the waste. Is all of that information there that needs to be there? Does my manifest match the waste that I'm hauling? These are all things that you should look at. You should never just blindly accept paperwork. Don't ever assume that anyone's doing anything right. You should always double check, because ultimately that liability falls on you and it falls on CG. So, we need to have this, double checking process to avoid any issues. And like I said, you should always sign as the transporter before you drive away with the waste. So when you're driving off, you should have the generator's signature and your transporter signature. And that applies to BOLs as well. So we're going to kind of run through some of the different manifests that you guys will generally see. Most of the time you guys, when you're handed this, it's going to be pretty much all the way filled out. Like, all of this information is already going to be there, and you just have to worry about your signatures. And like I said, double checking that the waste you're hauling matches the manifest. But, it's important that you know where this information is coming from. So if you see something missing, it's enough, enough to raise a red flag and say to waste, hey, we've got an issue with this manifest. I'm missing information. So that's why we're going to run through these examples. So this is a non-hazardous waste manifest example. You'll see it's boxed here. It says non-hazardous waste manifest. Usually this is this green line right here. This copy was black and white, but you can see there's a green line here. That can only be used for class 2 or class 3 non-hazardous waste. It cannot be used for hazardous waste, and it cannot be used for class 1 non-hazardous industrial waste. So if it's industrial waste, even if it's non-haz, this may not be the suitable manifest. So that's why you got to be careful using this type of form. It is 5 parts. The Uniform Haz Waste Manifest is also 5 parts, so it's got those 5 copies, those carbon copies. So when you sign on top, it signs all of them essentially. But like I said, you'd want to be careful using this manifest. You're better off using the white uniform manifest because you know you're covered regardless, and you don't have to jack around with this class 1 non-industrial, industrial. You know what do we need to use? Just use the white one. It just makes it so much easier, and you know you're good to go. So this is an example of landfill printed non-hazardous waste manifest. So generally, this is something that is generated by the disposal facility's website. This is only going to be used for non-hazardous waste, non-industrial, non-hazardous waste. So what will usually happen is like Otto. He'll go and he'll print out 4 copies of this if there's waste that's going out, if we're going to go pick it up and take it to the landfill. One's going to be for the generator customer. One's going to be for the transporter, which is you. One is going to be for transporter 2 if we're needing another transporter, and then one is for the disposal facility. So you'll need to go through and sign all of the copies. It's not like the carbon copy manifest where it's going to sign for you. You know, when you sign on top, you have to sign every single piece of paper. So generally this is pre-populated, so that address in box 3 right here, this mailing address, that's not going to match the site address because it's the generator's mailing address only. So you don't have to worry about that as much. Don't worry if this doesn't match in your Zora and you're like, well, this address is wrong. It's the mailing address. So that's what happens there. So these are pretty much pre-populated, filled out. But once again, same deal. Make sure you sign. We need to have the transporter 1, transporter signature, and then the date. Oh, I went back. My bad. Okay. What's happening? Whoops. Okay. No, I didn't go back. I went forwards. So this is an example of a uniform hazardous waste manifest that has been totally filled out. And as you can see, this was used for non-hazardous class 1 like waste. So it was soil and hydraulic oil. You know, that's class 1 for TPH, total petroleum hydrocarbons. So most of our, you know, hydrocarbon impacted soil is going to be class 1, which is why it's good to use this uniform hazardous waste manifest. Because you know whether the customer is industrial or non-industrial, this manifest is okay to use. So like I said, I encourage everyone to use this manifest because you know there's never going to be an issue in terms of using the wrong form. So like I said, this one's all white, no color. When you see, just for your information, when you look on manifest and you see NHNI, that stands for non-hazardous, non-industrial. So if you're wondering ever what that stands for, that's what that stands for right there. But this one is good, has all of our information we need. Brian signed on behalf of the generator, and then we've got Eli down there signed as transporter, and we've got our final disposal facility signature. So there you go. This is another example of the Uniform Hazardous Waste Manifest being used. This was actually used for class 2 non-industrial waste that went to the landfill. So totally non-haz, it's class 2. It's not even class 1, it's class 2, but we still put it on this manifest, which is fine. It's a good thing. So, you know, like I said, it's a catch-all. One thing to note on here, which you'll see on most of our manifests, this Texas C-Squig. So there's different generator categories in Texas based or all over the U.S., but based on how much hazardous waste that customer or generator generates in a month. Most of our customers are C-Squigs, which stands for Conditionally Exempt Small Quantity Generator, which basically means that this generator doesn't generate enough hazardous waste on a monthly basis to have to register with EPA or TCEQ for an EPA ID. That's why most of our customers have Texas C-Squig here. There will be some customers, like this one, this is Aero Components, they do have an EPA ID. So you can see right here, that's why we have an EPA ID right there, because they are registered with the state. They are a generator that has to report their waste to the state because of the volume of haz waste they generate. So there is a number here. You'll notice there is a Texas waste code here, so that's specific to the generator's waste stream. So, you know, just FYI, I mean, y'all won't have to worry about much of this information. Waste will take care of most of this, but it's just good for you to know, what is this? You know, this number right here stands for something, and it's specific to this generator. So that's where we're pulling these numbers from, you know, specifically from the TCEQ information for these generators. So, and this is also an example of where the mailing and site address were the same. So that's why we only have one box filled out here. You know, if the generator site was different, like here, you know, this is the mailing address for 7-Eleven. This is the actual site address. So this is actually where this job took place. That's why we've got two addresses there. So mailing and site address are the same here. So you just have one box filled out. And then this is an example of a manifest that was actually used for Haz Waste. So this is for a Circle K. You'll see here, we've actually got our own mailing address right here, which is fine. If they're a non-industrial generator that isn't registered with EPA or TCEQ, as you can see, it says Texas C-Squig right there. Usually it's going to be okay for us to put our mailing address there. All that's going to do is when Clean Harbors goes to return this manifest, the final copy, they will mail it back to us. And then that way we will make sure that the customer gets that final manifest. It may not always be our address there. Like with this one back here, Aero Components, we know what their mailing address is. It's a good mailing address. You know, they need those final copies back. They're registered with the state, and the EPA is a generator, so we want their mailing address there. But just FYI, that's why sometimes we'll have our own mailing address here, is just to make sure it gets into safe hands, and then we get it to the customer from there. So this manifest did have a DOT shipping name. That's what right here. You can see there's UN 1325, which is for waste flammable solids. We marked X right here because it is a hazardous material, because it's flammable and is hazardous for benzene. So that's what these codes here are indicating, is what is this waste Haz for. And when anybody looks at this, like the disposal facility, they're like, oh, we see these codes, we know what it's Haz for. And that matches the profile that's been submitted and approved by them. So that's basically, you know, a fully filled out uniform hazardous waste manifest being used for hazardous waste. We've got all of our signatures here. So this is completely improperly filled out. We've got phone numbers. We've got EPA IDs. So this is a great example of what a hazardous waste manifest should look like with hazardous waste. Okay, and that's coming to the end. We got 2 more slides. Just always check your manifest to ensure it matches the waste that you're hauling, like I said before. You know, if you're supposed to be hauling a solid and your manifest says solid, but you've got a drum full of liquid, that's an issue. You get there, your manifest that's been made by waste ahead of time, it says you've got, you know, 2 drums of waste on site. You get there and there's only 1, or there's 5. Those are red flags that, you know, you need to bring up before you pick that waste up. So you need to give waste a call. There's also, you need to double check the customer generator name and address. So if you've got a manifest that's for, let's say, like TxDOT, you know, or you don't realize that until you get on site, you go to NTE and you look down and it's a manifest for TxDOT, well, obviously that's an issue. It's not the right customer or generator or address, you know. So just good to review your manifest before you leave the site. And if something doesn't seem right or doesn't match with the situation at hand, then stop. Get with waste to make sure you have the right paperwork. We'd rather have you check ahead of time than make your way all the way back to the yard and you've got the wrong paperwork. Because then we have to retroactively go back and fix stuff, get the right things signed, and it's just a huge pain. So if we can catch it on the front end, we're all better all the way around. And another point, we work with subs a lot. So if you're handing a manifest to a sub transporter, let's say you're a tech that's on site and we've got like Aero, let's say down in Austin, they're hauling the roll-off for us. Make sure that you watch them sign as Transporter 1 and that you get that back copy or at least a picture of the signed manifest. Don't ever assume that a sub-transporter has signed the waste paperwork, whether it's a manifest or BOL. And I'm not trying to be like, you know, any like stanky towards them, but you just can't ever trust that they have signed the paperwork. We've seen it a lot where we'll get, you know, a manifest back from the landfill and there's no transporter signature, which technically the landfill shouldn't accept it like that, but they did. And then now we have to go back and somehow get this signature retroactively. And it's just, you know, it's just a mess. So make sure before they drive away that you have a copy of that signed manifest. So when Aero goes to leave or, you know, New Ventures or whoever you're using, you should be standing there with a copy of that manifest that has the generator customer signature and that has the sub transporter signature on it. That basically confirms that they've signed properly, and it shows that proper chain of custody of the waste. So just make sure you get a signed copy, or at least get a photo showing that they've signed all the copies. And then once again, you should always get a copy of the manifest once everyone has signed. You should never walk away empty-handed. We need that copy, or at least a photo, if that's literally all you can get. We need that. Waste needs that. CG needs it for compliance purposes. So, please bring waste documents back to waste, or scan it into the system however you normally get it to waste. But don't just, like I said, assume that the transporter has it handled. You walk away, and then all of a sudden we've got zero paperwork for this job. So please make sure you get that copy of that signed manifest or the BOL, and then we should be set from there. So, okay, that's it. Thanks for listening to me ramble. Like always, let Waste know if you have any questions or see anything wrong with manifest so we can take care of it ahead of time rather than on the back end.